Hello, everybody. Welcome to Recruit, Hire, Lead to Retain. I am your host, Deborah Reynolds, owner of About Face Image Consulting, business and leadership coach, image mindset and transformation expert. And my co host is recruiting and hiring expert and owner of Best Culture Solutions, Tim Dick. Welcome, Tim.
Good to see you again. It's Friday.
It is Friday, and I'm sure everybody across the board is thrilled that it's Friday and they get to hopefully relax for the weekend. What do you got planned? What do you got planned for this weekend?
Honestly, nothing. And the reason for that, and you know this, is I was actually in London 2 weekends ago. And so since coming back, I've been pretty happy to just lay low. How about yourself?
Well, a little bit of that. I think the laying low part of it is really good. And you know what? It actually took me 10 years of business before I took a designated day off. And now that I'm kind of into 32 years of business, no, I actually guard my private time and
Yeah.
make it a priority because that is really
Yeah.
important for really enhancing energy and mental fitness and physical fitness and having the energy to put forth like towards family, but also towards self growth and development, the desires that we have, but also for the growth of the business. And that's a really good lesson for everybody, I think, to make sure you take your designated time off.
Yeah. And I think that dovetails into a lot of what we're going to talk about today when you introduce the topic. But what do you think, before we go there, what do you think it was that held you back for those 10 years? I think I know what it is because I think I understand it, but I like to hear it from people.
You know, okay, perhaps a little bit of the FOMO, fear of missing out,
Yeah, that's right.
thinking that I was going to miss out on very specific opportunities or have access to business in that moment without
Mm.
realizing that setting those strong boundaries just makes me serve better, I think, in the long run. But you know what? Everybody has different reasons. What are you experiencing with that, or what do you think it is?
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, and I can be completely upfront and honest about what it was for me, and now I'm just beginning to get used to this and settle into it a little bit. But for me, it was that. So, like in our house, my wife likes to stay at home with our kids, right? And so I'm the only income earner in the house, and so it was definitely FOMO, but of a different kind. It was fear that if you go away, and if you aren't around. It's taking something out of the business's pocket, but it's double-ended because you're not in a corporate job where you have, approved vacation days. You're now not you're spending money and you're not generating money, so you're worried about that, and then as well you're kind of worried about missing out on new business because all you can think about at first is making sure that you're providing for your family. But I've definitely settled in a lot better to it now that we're in year two of things, and and getting better at it, because you can't sustain that. You can't do it forever, as you know, because you'll burn out. You just can't. So
Yeah, you're right. You will burn out over a period of time. And the other thing is it leads to a lot of dissatisfaction. So let's segue
yeah,
into the topic. The topic
let's
today
go.
is leading in a corporate environment and a corporate culture to enhance your business image.
Yeah.
And to me, this is really important because our program is recruit, hire, lead to retain. So the
Hmm.
leadership comes from the self leadership of the person coming into an organization and being hired. But when you're in the organization and even before you're kind of reaching out and hiring people or recruiting team, you need to have a strong leadership presence in the organization. That culture needs to exist already.
Yeah.
And, we see things from different points of view. As an
Yeah.
executive leadership coach, I see things from one perspective. You, as a recruiter and a hiring expert, you see things from a different perspective. So I want to know what you're experiencing and seeing of perhaps a lack of leadership and where leaders need
Mm,
to step up.
let me tell you, you're so right. We live in a day and an age where there's never been more self-awareness around the need for this, and yet less execution and less commitment to actually, doing this stuff. Um, I'm just thinking about how do I put this, but really, like, at the end of the day, what it all boils down to is how it's all about executive presence, right? So how the leader carries themselves out is how people on the team will be shown that they can carry themselves out. And if you're not doing that, then it's not going to matter. Like, they're not going to nobody on the team is going to do what you hope from them to do if they don't see that behavior in you. And so it's never been more important than ever before, but yet people struggle with it. And I do wonder if part of it, and I've mentioned this before, is the speed at which we get information now. The speed that we get information now is crazy. But it makes us jumping all over the place that we can't really fully be in the moment with people. Technology is a great tool, but people have to have the self-discipline to use it right and make sure that they're carving out time for deliberate behavior and action. But long story short, it's so important. If you don't have that executive presence as a leader, the tone starts at the top, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. So that whole aspect of self-growth and development is actually a very small percentage of the population that indulges in it, that realizes it is a necessary element for growth and development, and to be able to embrace and have the willingness and the desire to want to execute on all sorts of things like operations and sales and finances and marketing strategies, to really embrace and fully be able to be present for those things. You have to step up and become that type of person that has the ability to really work with a wide variety of personalities, to influence those people, to bring those people together for a common cause of focus, to be able to drive them forward for a very particular goal. It's really interesting how I wanted to just share that I had a conversation very recently with a business owner who wanted to scale up the business. And this particular owner was flawless in terms of her spreadsheets and her financials. She had really worked out the numbers very, very specifically. However, for her to be in a very profitable place, she has to scale up the production of her product to a point that actually generates consistent income for her in her own pocket, never mind the growth of the company. And she's having trouble bringing people on board from a mindset point of view to say, this is what we want to do, and we want to do it within a short period of time. My recommendation to her was, say, 3 months, that you can scale this product to this point to actually generate the profit in the business. Because if you are not scaling quickly enough, the business kind of flatlines and people get really complacent. So you become, you're putting yourself as a business owner in a very precarious situation where you don't have the focus, the alignment of the individuals all thinking in the same way towards the goal. And then you don't have that timeline tight enough for everybody to stay focused and to work very, very intently and collaboratively together. So it was a real dilemma for her, not knowing. I mean, she's wanting to have this happen, but I mean, really, the words out of her mouth was she was scared, SHIT, with the thing. She was phenomenally nervous about the whole process and how it would work. And so the mindset piece of getting over the fear of driving the business forward and leading the team powerfully is really an essential element for growth.
Sounds to me like she should talk to a recruiter.
Definitely. From a recruitment point of view, she needs the right people to come on board.
That's right.
And there's no question about that. That would actually be a really good thing for her to be able to do, because she has everything beautifully laid out in terms of processes and systems. At this particular point for growth, she just doesn't have enough people to do it.
Yeah, and she needs the right people who are going to do that with the right mindset that matches her business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. But to your the original topic of our conversation, if you're not identifying, okay, so you could identify the right people all along, but if your executive presence doesn't match the tone or the direction that you want the organization to go, it's not going to matter, is it? Like, it won't be worth a hill of beans. And so that goes back to where it's so important to do the self-work and to make sure that you're carrying yourself in a way that matches or aligns with what your expectations are of everybody that you work with, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that self-work and that process is, it's really an understanding and admitting that, hey, I have more work to do. And to be honest about it, and to actually allot the time and the energy to be able to work on that. Because if
Yeah,
you're not focused on up leveling certain skill sets in certain areas, it becomes a problem. So
that's right.
knowing your position as a leader, as a president or CEO of a company, running an organization, I mean, your focus and attention really needs to be on the brand of the company and the marketing of the company, and making sure that the right people are in place to execute
Mhm.
all those other things, the other skill sets of sales, the client fulfillment, the administrative operations, making sure you have the right financial team on board to be able to look at the numbers. And as a business owner, you've got to be able to read the numbers. If you
That's right.
can't read the numbers, you're in trouble, because the numbers define very quickly that's your projection going forward. And you have to have that system or process behind the numbers to drive the activities forward, and to be able to repeat the process over and over again.
So let's dig into what we can do then, like to achieve that mindset or that leadership or that presence that we're talking about. Because I know that you are somebody who spends a lot of time thinking about that.
Yeah, thinking about it and doing it. Not only am I thinking about it, I'm doing it.
True.
So
True.
my morning starts off with very specific focus and mental fitness exercises to kind of get
Mhm.
primed for the day. I already have a pre-laid out plan of really what I want to focus on for the next day, and that is planned out even for a week and a month. I'm looking at where is my what traditionally we've known as the big rocks of, really it's the three major things that would move you forward. And most people focus on the three major things that they would be focusing on for the month. And then, what's the big things that need to happen during the week? And then what are
Right.
the three major things that you would be doing during the day? But I like to have that even more laser focused in going, what is the one item that if you completed it and you completed it in a timely fashion before noon, would make you feel that it was the most extraordinary successful day. Because there is one thing that moves, what we traditionally say is moves the needle much faster than anything else,
Hmm.
because you can get caught up in the illusion of being busy, but you're actually not making progress in the business. So it is,
Yeah, the two are not the same, are they?
no, they're not. They're not the same. So, we can get caught up in handling a lot of those little things and putting out little fires rather than doing the preventative thing. If you've got one fire, one major problem that comes up, that is an indication. One of the questions that should be asked is it likely to come up again? And if it's likely to come up again, you create a system and process for preventing it from coming up again. And the determining factor is how much time you're actually wasting. You and your team are wasting to put out that fire. And if there's considerable time and scrambling and it pushes the timeline back on other projects, you
Hmm.
need to address it and you need to get it out of the way so it doesn't interfere in any other projects and major events happening within the company.
That's right. So have you empowered your team to put out that fire when that happens? And the best example that I have is as you know, I spent time working at Disney, and that was a very formative time in my career, if not the most formative time in my career. But um, if you go there and say somebody gets sick, right, and they get sick and they get sick, um, and there's a mess, I guarantee you it would take you no more than 30 seconds to see a cloud of dust shoot up because they're putting all the stuff down to clean it up and they're sweeping it up. But it's because, you know, everything is in place to put out that fire quickly, right? That quickly piece is there and it's done. And they are really talented at always asking that question is, so what do you need to put out the fire quickly, right? And giving people what they need to put out the fire quickly. Um, and it shows. I mean, they have a reputation for a reason, right? And it's a very positive reputation. It's because what people need to put out the fire quickly is there, and they're never perfect. They're always evolving, but they're always thinking about it and taking suggestions, and it shows in the operational excellence when you're there.
Yeah, that's, I mean, one of the reasons why Disney is so famous at what it is that they do. So,
Mm-hmm.
what comes to mind, based on what you were saying there, is the speed at which an individual, a person in the company
Hmm.
recognizes that there is a problem, that
Right.
things are out of sequence, out of order, that they're not the way that they should be.
Right.
So
You're right.
really there has to be a very specific plan laid out so that people are very much aware of this is how we want things to operate, what the experience is to look like, what staff are to experience, what the customer is to experience, what vendors and suppliers are experiencing. It is that notion of having a clarity of mind of the process and system, the way that it's built out, needs to be ingrained in every single employee. So when the cog of the wheel gets stuck or something gets put in that's slowing down the process, there has to be an immediate recognition that, oh, something's just happened here. What is it? And for
Yeah.
them to laser in and focus and try to quickly identify there is a problem here. Something has slowed down the process or speeded up, inadvertently where it should be at a certain pace. So looking at the elements that are causing an interruption in the natural flow of order that they're intending. And so
Mm.
that recognition of, like you were saying, having the staff empowered, everybody needs to be empowered to make the decisions, to act and do it quickly, and to be able to have the freedom to be able to bring in those elements that are going to clean it up quickly.
Well, and it's funny. So let's circle that back to the original kind of talk about leadership, executive presence, all that stuff. If you don't lead the right way, if you don't have the right presence with your people, being able to do all these things that we're talking about, being able to adapt quickly or to um, change quickly for the positive and all that stuff, a lot of it is incumbent on having an environment where people feel like they can be open about what needs to change or it can be fixed. Um, and you really, if you have the wrong presence, if you have the wrong leadership kind of style or aura about you, or you're sending the wrong message to your team, you will not get the information that you need to do that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you're almost talking about an element of control there, that
Yep.
leaders have a control process system in place. However, if they're not flexible enough to be able to embrace the experiences, the immediate experiences and insights of team members that are in the moment with the issue, with the problem, because
Yep.
often managers and leaders are removed somewhat. They're
Yep.
actually not experiencing the problem in the moment. You have to be able to trust your team. You have to be able to empower and trust your team and say, okay, how would you handle this based on your knowledge and experience? Let them make a few mistakes, guide them. If you've got the experience as a leader and manager, you've done it before, guide them, but make sure there's people around that do have that experience to be able to walk through the correction of a problem and getting it back on track. Because not every leader, not every manager in every division and department understands how to correct problems quickly in all the other departments. They may have a specialty, but they may not have general knowledge and know what they're looking at in the moment.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Yeah, you're really right about that. Yeah. What are some of the things that you've seen kind of, because we're in two different areas. So, I mean, you asked me at the beginning what I'm seeing with leadership and trends. What are you seeing where you're at?
Well, one of the major problems is really what we were just discussing, is that
Yeah.
the leaders are a little bit nervous. Many of them are nervous, and they are really not trusting their team to be fully invested into the company and wanting the company to succeed.
Right.
So they think the employee is not as invested as they are, as the CEO or the president or even the business owner, when in fact, most people are coming in and they're wanting to succeed. They're just
Mhm.
wanting to showcase their gifts and talents and to be able to
Yeah.
display what they're, and demonstrate what they're really good at. So having that opportunity to be open-minded and flexible and to have great conversations with people, allowing them the freedom to have open dialogue and discussion about things, honest discussion. I mean,
That's right.
some of those discussions can lead to conflict, but you've got to be able to embrace some level of conflict at differing points of view to kind of banter out positioning, and then you come together. So allowing a little bit of conflict, which is healthy, of going, this is my point of view, here's the reasons why, this is your point of view, let's come together, let's fix this. But in essence, it's going to be, what's the time frame that we got? How quickly are we able to fix this problem? And knowing the impact. So when something goes wrong, you have to be able to share with the entire team, and the willingness. You have to, first of all, as a leader, have the willingness to want to share with the team and be transparent that if this element goes wrong, this is the ripple effect. This is how it interrupts the pattern in the rest of the organization, with more clarity of mind of what it's costing the organization in terms of money, investment. They always say, speed, money loves speed. So when you do things quickly, we're more likely to generate a profit. When things start to slow down, you got to correct things. Sometimes there's a little bit of an increase in expense. However, that in the long term is going to save the organization a lot of money. But you don't get clarity on a lot of things without open dialogue and discussion. It doesn't mean that you fill up your day with endless meetings. That's another mistake that I see a lot of leaders do. Yeah. The decision making and the hearing, the knowledge, is you need a certain amount of time to execute and get things done in the organization. So what I see is one of the major problems is there's way too many meetings and not enough fast decision making and to be able to move forward into execution. So it's got to be, you have to have enough knowledge of the organization that you are both a big picture thinker and a detailed micro thinker, so that you get the least amount of information, but then you can make a fast decision and go, let's move forward with this. Or somebody just has to go, I see a problem, I'm going to go fix it because I know how it impacts each of the other divisions or departments in a company. But that takes real skill. I mean, you've got to really embrace your whole team to be able to do that, and trust your team to come together with a collaborative environment. Very supporting the open dialogue and collaboration needs to happen.
So do you know what the biggest thing that leaders miss, that I see anyway, that leaders miss the boat on, that prevents them from being able to have the knowledge to do that, right? Because you need, what you're talking about is knowing, being able to make a macro level decision and understanding how it affects the micro level outcome, right, at the end of the day, or the specific, or the strategy and how it affects the execution of the tactics, or what have you. But the biggest thing that leaders do not do that prevents them from having the knowledge to do that is they don't spend time actually doing the jobs that they are responsible for, that they oversee in some way, right? Best example that I have of people that do that, I'm going to go back to my Disney days. At Disney, I remember it was very simple. If you were managing a restaurant or you're managing an operation, before you were allowed to take on management shifts, you actually had to go into the job and do it. So that way you knew what you were talking about, or you knew what you were doing. And I can remember we would get new managers, and they had been in restaurants before, and it shouldn't have been an issue, but they were asked to shadow every role in the restaurant. Another great example is that I can remember when I was there, we had a new vice president that was running the entire theme park. So I had thousands of people working for him underneath. But one of the things is that he had spent time mostly in the finance department, not in operations. And so a lot of people thought, what is this? Because they still had that old mindset that if you didn't have experience, then you had to have all this experience to be right for the job. But it's not true. But when he took on the job, he spent 4 months, I think. I can't recall specifically, but I think it was about 4 months just shadowing people, going to do custodial shifts, work in restaurants. And he earned so much respect for doing that. But what he really gained is that when he was making, like you said, those bigger decisions, it was easier for him to understand how the details were affected because he had worked hands-on with the detail, right? And so many leaders I see just don't do that. I can tell you from my personal experience. So I am like a pretty big picture thinker, so sometimes details escape me. But by doing that in roles where I've been a leader, I knew more about the details a lot of times and how they would be affected by decisions than a lot of people that were leaders, but yet their personality style is more detail oriented because they hadn't spent time really actually seeing how the details, right, shake out. And so there's so many things that benefit from that. Is the first is that, right, you understand how things work and the decisions that you make and how they affect all the different pieces of the puzzle. But the other thing is that you get respect from the people that you work with, and sometimes a little bit of envy for the leaders around you who claim to be too busy to do this, which is another story altogether. But the people that you work with will respect you because they know that you know what it's like to do their job, and they like that and they respect that and they value that. But they respect you and they trust your decision making because you've been in the trenches and you understand what's going on.
Tim, this is a very important element that you've just shared, and one that I 100% agree with. So when new managers and leaders come into a division or department, my recommendation is they don't make any changes for 6 months.
Agreed.
Because just what you were sharing, having them go around to each and every employee and say, tell me what you're doing. I don't really understand the processes and systems of what you're specifically dealing with and how you execute day-to-day activities. Tell me more about your job and your function and what's missing or what's needed and what's required. Exactly what you were saying. They're shadowing, they're getting the information, they're working hands-on, they're seeing and experiencing, but they're learning from the individual in that division or department what the issues and challenges are. So I'm going to challenge our audience, any leaders that you have out there, you need to spend the majority of your day walking around, talking to people and say, look, I'm wanting to learn more about your role and what it is that you do so that I can make better decisions as a manager and to support you. So tell me what's going on. So I'm going to challenge the audience to do that. The other thing that I'm going to challenge the leaders to do is for the next 2 weeks, no criticism coming out of your mouth. You are not to openly criticize another employee, but instead, what you're going to do is recognize what it is that they do well and educate from and guide and say, these are some of the best practices that we want to implement within the company. And when you did this or when you said this, I really appreciate it. This is how it supports the team and moves forward. But no criticism, because I want you to, as a business leader, develop a sense of extraordinary trust within the company. I want the employees to trust you. And one way of doing that is that you need to be there for them and give them all the tools and resources that they need to be able to support their growth and development, but to execute and get the job done so that they can give you the results at the end of the day and to help meet the company goals. That, to me, is what challenges. Any last words that you have around that, Tim?
A part of me is like, just stop now. That was great. Just end it there. But I want to offer people, I just would feel bad if I didn't offer people one simple tactical way that you can execute that. Oh, pardon me.
Got to turn the ringers off.
Apologize. I had told my thing to stay quiet for this, and it doesn't seem to have worked. But the one thing that they can do is this, and I actually even put this in my day timer. Identify one person per day that you can appreciate, recognize, or encourage. Do one of each and do that. And the way I used to do it is I used to just write it out on the Post-it note. And if I appreciated something that somebody did, I was specific. Hey, I noticed that you did this and I really appreciated that. Great job. And I leave it on their desk. But what that did is it built trust with people. So that way, when you had to also show people a different way to do it. And I never thought that you should be critical anyway when you show people, teach them, right? You don't have to light anybody up. You don't have to go crazy. Just show people what they need to know. Teach. That's it. And I had a day timer that actually had on there one slot for appreciation, one for recognition, and one for encouragement when I had a large team. And it made the world of difference. And I can tell you right now that it works. It's like free fuel for your team.
That's right. Free fuel. I love that. The excellent suggestions there, Tim. Thank you. So to our audience, I want you to know that there is a free gift for you in the chat. I've included a link to a free copy of Kickstart Your Business Image Report for you to be able to review. You're able to reach out to Tim Dick from Best Culture Solutions for any of your recruiting and hiring needs. And I'm Deborah Reynolds with About Face Image Consulting, helping you with business and leadership coaching. We will see you in 2 weeks.